2, 1. Welcome back to today's edition of Health Hangouts with Amanda. For those of you who might be just joining us today for the first time, we are committed to releasing one video per day with a different interviewee to talk about how they're doing with the COVID crisis and what they're doing to support themselves, their loved ones, their families, and professionally how they're affected and things like that. So today we have Terry Ketteringham with us, and Terry and I have known each other for 3.5 or 4 years. We work together as colleagues at a treatment center on Vancouver Island. And actually I haven't seen you in a long time, Terry. So it's really cool. It's kind of 2 birds with 1 stone with this interview to be able to connect with you again. And because I think the last even phone call we had was a while ago, like months, like maybe 6 months or something like that. So, and I knew at the time that you're building your private practice. And so being able to connect is just great. I'm so appreciative that you're volunteering the time today to allow me to do this recording and share with the world whatever gems of information you have for support. So we are hoping to share strength, hope, and love with those listening. And yeah, so I'll hand it off to Terry. And just Terry, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your practice or whatever you want to share.
Sure. Thanks, Amy, for having me. Hello, everybody. My name's Terry, and I'm with Breaking Chains Counselling here in Nanaimo. And well, lately it's just been from my couch or my dining room table. I'm working with folks, all across Canada at this point because everybody seems to be working online. Yeah, like Amy said, probably around October was when I made a full jump into private practice. I was working in an addiction treatment center, private place for quite a while, and it was really hard for me to manage working full-time in an intensive program like that, but also facilitating groups and also having private clients. It was exhausting, and my family, I think they recognized, hey, you're really grumpy, and I didn't want to be grumpy anymore, and so I just decided I was just going to work for me, and it's been delightful. It's been a lot of fun. It's been stressful at times, but then it's also been really rewarding, right? And yeah. So, most of the work that I do tends to revolve around addiction and mental illness. But, I probably at about half now. Half of my clients don't have addiction at all. Some of my clients have never used substances in their lives. And so I think that's one thing that people get confused about, is that they have to come and see me about addiction. That's not the case. I'm well-versed in all sorts of challenges that we face, if we might say it like that. So that's me.
That's wonderful. And you come with like a quirky, what I call a quirky personality. I love like your humor. You just put things out there when it comes up, and we can have some fun with that too. So Terry, let's start with just personally. Like I know you're in a relationship and you're obviously at home all the time, both of you, and just wondering what that's been like. And I know that for a lot of folks out there, relationships have strengthened as a result of needing to stay home together, but also a lot of people out there are struggling in terms of relationships disintegrating, or there's greater conflict. So I'm just curious what your experience is being at home all the time with your partner.
For sure. Excuse me. So I think it was, I don't know, February, maybe March. I don't know. Everything's kind of bled together now. I think it was March. I went to California to visit. My partner was visiting family down south, and so I went there, and it was at the time when everything started to go really sideways with the coronavirus. And the beginning of our trip was lovely, and as the week progressed, it got less and less lovely. I remember having to go. I went to Costco to get some steaks, and it was mayhem in there. People were like filling up double carts and toilet paper as far as the eye could see, and lots of liquor and toilet paper down there. They like it. And so when we came back, there were challenges about coming back. My partner, she wasn't planning on coming back with me, and we had to arrange for her to fly home with me. And then our last flight got canceled at the last minute. So I had to be on the phone for like 8 hours on our last day in California. So it was frustrating. It was stressful. Getting home was easy. you know, at the border, I probably could have been smuggling all sorts of stuff. They didn't ask about anything. They were just like, have you been around any sick people? Do you have a cough, anything like that? Or are you going to stay home?
Mm-hmm.
But when we came home, we quarantined ourselves and spent 2 weeks, you know, 2 weeks in the house. And it was, I would say that was probably the biggest challenge for both of us is we weren't used to being around each other like that all the time. And we got into some arguments. We had one day where I think it got really bad and both of us were just in our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both just pushed each other away. And, you know, by the next day we were like, no, we need to talk about what's going on for us. For myself, I was lonely. I was missing
Mm-hmm.
people. My partner, she's views herself as an introvert, and I've always kind of viewed myself that way because I do like my solitude. But then, about 2 weeks in, I was like, hey, I'm an extrovert. I like people. I like being around people. I like talking to people. And so nowadays, when I see them, I will talk people's ear off, right? Like I was at the grocery store, geez, I don't know, 2, 3 weeks ago, and I happened to run into my buddy Ryan, and I almost burst into tears because I was like, oh my God, it's a friend, and I can see you.
Oh,
And
yes.
it was tough. And we were trying to keep this separation from each other. And I was looking at him and he was looking at, we were talking, we were keeping this distance, but other people in the grocery store, like there was no protocols around, what do we do when people are talking? And so we realized we were causing a traffic jam, so we had to stop. And I just like, I miss people. And like even today on here with you, like we were talking for quite a while before we even got to this portion of our time together. And so like I really do, I've got friends and colleagues who go to work and they go to work, and like as much as they're stressed out, one of them said to me the other day, they were like, yeah, you know what, at least I do have work to go to, and I have other people I can joke around and laugh with. Like, I've had some intimate conversations with our dog. I have
Yes.
I formulate arguments in the shower. I can be regularly heard talking to myself while I'm bathing. And so I'm quite brilliant in the shower, by the way. I've got some really good arguments.
I imagine you are.
I win every one, by the way. Yeah, that's about it. Like I've gotten really used to it. We've done a little gardening, and I've mowed the lawn, but it's rained the last couple of days and I've needed to mow the lawn. So now the lawn is really long. And so I need to get out there. I'll probably do that tomorrow. Probably not today. I'm feeling pretty lazy.
Well, actually we're going to do some gardening this weekend too, and mow the lawn and all that stuff. And I think it'll be a really nice, although I love the work online. I am really, really loving that. I'm loving doing these interviews because it's a really beautiful form of connection that's available to me outside of my relationship, and I'm finding our relationship is growing closer also as a result of spending all the time together. And I think for me it's about that clear communication and being able to say, okay, I need some personal space or whatever, and taking that in a different part of the house and then coming back together, and it's just there's a really nice flow there. That doesn't mean that we don't get into, little tips and things like that. However, when we can come back and work it out, I mean, it's just about communication. But I don't want to say it's just like to say out there, oh, it's that easy, because it's not easy. And I recognize that. But yeah, so doing different things like getting out of the house and going for walks around the marsh or near the river or whatever. And sometimes talking about things, sometimes walking in silence, like it's just whatever presents, and just embracing that as is without trying to change it, without, trying to mask anything, and just being with what is, I find is really valuable, and it's really solidifying the connection that I have in my relationship. And then, so yeah, we're going to dig up the garden and do a bunch of stuff this weekend. And I'm going to disconnect digitally also, because this is all I have been doing all month, right? And no complaints. I love it. Wouldn't be able to do this much if I didn't love it, but I am going to disconnect this weekend as a form of self-care also,
For sure.
while deepening the connection in my relationship. So yeah, so my experience is similar in that way, for sure.
Yeah, I know my partner, one of the things that I love doing is when she falls asleep beside me on the couch, if we're watching a movie or something, I like to take pictures of her while she's asleep in whatever kind of face she's making. And then I text them to her, and she does not find it as funny as I do.
Right.
So far, it is 100% me finding it hilarious and her finding it the opposite of hilarious. So that's caused some.
I'm with her. I'm with her on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. People need to lighten up.
Well.
She took a picture of me sleeping on the couch, and you could see I had the iPad in front of me, and what I was watching was was Pee-wee's Playhouse from 1984, because it was one of those shows that I watched when I was a kid that brought great joy. And so yeah, but she was making sure that she had some bad pictures of me too. So,
yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys are having a good time despite the challenges, right? Yeah, so that's great. And so I'm curious, just transitioning a bit. So you have an office in Nanaimo, and so you were working out of that office, and now you're working from your couch or your dining room table. What has the transition been like for you?
Well, you know, it sucks because, like, you know, a lot of us are paying rent in a commercial space, and so I'm currently paying rent to house some plants and some chairs and a desk and you know, like office stuff. And it's an added expense. I looked this morning, my bank account was less than it was last night because I'm paying commercial space, and so that's annoying for me. Like, I understand it's a part of the process, and I understand we have to do it, but that's been frustrating because it's like I've got this space, and my partner was the one to decorate it, and she just did an amazing job, and it's such a comfortable space to work in. Like, before, I would go into my office even an hour early. Like, there's a coffee shop right downstairs. I would grab a coffee, I'd go up to my office, and I would just sit, and I would just be still and just enjoy the space. And I'm not having that right now, and so I go in once or twice a week, check to make sure, you know, it hasn't been broken into, or I water the plants. But you know, when I go in there, I leave, I'm feeling sad. You know, I'm not able to work out of that space because, like, I also find that, like, in my office, I use whiteboards a lot. And so when I'm using a whiteboard, there's a lot of just graphics that we use. And what I notice is that when I'm using Zoom and I use the whiteboard on Zoom, my fingers make it look like I've got Parkinson's disease. And so everything is really terrible, and it's like everything's a squiggly line. It doesn't look as good. So I've struggled with the transition that way. But what I do like about what I've been doing online is the ability to share documents instantly with people, and I can bring something up on the screen, and I can have a graphic there that we can look at, and we can explore it together. And so a lot of the folks I'm working with have said they really like that piece. Or if I'm doing a group session and I notice there's a theme going on in a group, I can bring up something that actually shows them the dynamic that's happening in the group, and then suddenly they're like, oh wow, I never saw it like that. So it's helped in the group setting in that way, but that face-to-face piece is something that I've missed. But yeah, like, you know, as we were talking about earlier, the added comfort of the pantry, a stocked pantry has been nice, because, like, during, you know, I'll have 10 minutes between folks that I'm working with, and I'll come out, I'll go to the washroom, I'll fill up my water, I'll grab, you know, a handful of whatever snack I find delightful in that moment, and then I head back in. The only challenge, well, I shouldn't say the only challenge, one of the other challenges I have is a lot of the work I do is hypnosis. And I require a silent space to do that. And so we have a dog. The dog weighs 7 pounds. He thinks he weighs 170 pounds. Okay. And he thinks he is this beast of an animal. And if Amazon or Purelator comes by and delivers anything, it is loud and super distracting because he just barks and yaps and wants to kill whatever is at the door. And so that has been a distraction at times. So I've been timing things a certain way so that I'm not you know, I'm not in a place where I know, you know, okay, yeah, deliveries usually come around this time. I'm going to make sure I'm down in the back corner of our house, far away from Harley, because he will, yeah, he's distraction. The other piece too is once in a while I'll be working with somebody, and you know, I can't hear what's going on in their headphones. They can hear me, but they've also got notifications going off on their phone, notifications going off on their laptop, reminders, dings, updates, all that kind of stuff's going off. So it does provide more of a distraction. So I spend a lot of time, you know, in the beginning saying, okay, let's make sure everything's shut off. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me at this tone? Can you, like, the volume, all that kind of stuff. So there is a lot of setup that way. So yeah, it can be annoying, but you know, I think the longer this goes on, the easier it has gotten. And so it's not that bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think I liked your comment earlier. You were like, you know, when everybody had to go online, you said, well, you know, Amanda's probably okay. This is just like a Monday for her.
Yeah.
And it is. We've been doing this for 7 years now. And I'm really grateful for that, because when we first started this online process, it was difficult. And I remember it took us a while, and we were gifted with time to be able to do that in a small caseload, and trying to figure out all the little, like, making sure the notifications are off, and making, like, understanding how the technology works and what to do when this happens and what to do when this doesn't work. And so I have a lot of respect and empathy for people who are trying to transition over to online now, because people have had to adapt very quickly.
Very quickly.
And we're not talking like just, you know, counselors, like everybody in the world, right? Doesn't matter what they do for work. And so it's just really fascinating to see how important
some of us
become.
Yes. And well, some of us aren't even that tech savvy. Right. And so, like, I feel grateful. I know that you're very, you know, technology wise, you're very good. Others are great. But I know some counselors who are really struggling throughout this whole process.
Hard.
It's very, very hard. And they don't know how to do it. They don't know what platform to use. They don't know what to trust. You know, yeah, it is a big challenge. I know when I came back from California, I had essentially a full caseload the following week. But when I came back and everything kind of fell apart, I noticed that about a third of my clients just backed away. They were like, I don't want to do online. I don't like it. I don't have, you know, and then there was a lot of financial fear around it too, where people were like, I won't be able to afford it, which is totally cool. I remember within a couple weeks though, I noticed that a lot of people were decompensating badly, and they were really struggling. And so I noticed there were a few people who came back and were like, yeah, you know what, like, I need to make this a priority right now. And, you know, thank goodness for those people who did continue to commit to their own wellness, because they're doing okay today. But I've watched some people kind of fall to the wayside, and they're not doing as well, and they're really struggling. And so, you know, that's my big fear for folks right now, is that they're not taking care of themselves, and it is impacting them in a very negative way. You know, being isolated like this is tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it requires a lot of adaptation. And you know, earlier you said, you know, there are a lot of, like, counselors who are struggling with the technology, and I wasn't good at this in the beginning at all, and it took me a long time to learn. I mean, in fact, first time I ever switched operating systems on my computer from, you know, from one type of computer to another, it took me a month to learn all the ins and outs of how to use the different operating system and how it worked and all that stuff. And then it took us, you know, a long time to really, and I would never say anything is perfect, we're always learning, but to really nail down how to offer an online service seamlessly, and there's still kinks and stuff, but I think that we can extrapolate this over other topics. Like, this is about adaptation. And so we're now stuck at home, and you know, we can maybe see someone in a grocery store, and it's like this delightful experience, and I would love to run into a friend in a grocery store. That would be something I would really look forward to. I'm gonna, like, will that. The universe, please let me have that. but we have to adapt. And so when you're talking about people who are decompensating, yes, that's happening all over the place, and I'm seeing that as well. And so as you're working with people who are talking about decompensating, but also the people out there who aren't talking about it, like what can we say to them that can maybe like offer an invitation to do something different? Like what, you know, I know people might need to hear different things because we were in different circumstances, but in a generalized way, I'd love to reach them, you know, and say, listen, like this is how we can adapt together, you know. So any thoughts about that and how we can reach out to these people who are listening?
Yeah, and I think part of it, like I'm pretty open about my life and my struggles. I'm not really one to, you know, hold back. I'm fairly open, and so I think part of what I've done, like I'm in recovery from addiction, and I attend you know, recovery meetings to take care of my own sanity. And what I love is that even that community has adapted quickly. You know, I remember the group that I regularly go to, we decided, you know what, we're not going to hold meetings face to face anymore. We need to figure something out. And so we figured out, okay, well, you know, I said, hey, I've got a professional Zoom account. Why don't I set up our meeting, and we'll make sure. And then others did the same. And so I noticed that a lot of people there are speaking and talking about what's going on for them. And you know, when it comes to myself, even though I'm a professional in this community, I go to those spaces to take care of myself, and I'm not shy to talk about my struggles, and I have. And what I find is that the more I'm opening up about what's going on for me, the more people are coming to me and saying, "Wow, I really related to what you were talking about. Actually, I thought I was kind of alone." And so, you know, whenever I'm you know, talking to other people, I'm really just trying to lead by example, and outing myself as far as the struggles go. Like even last Sunday, I set up a Zoom meeting with my family because I was like, man, I have not talked to mom. Like I've talked to my mom and dad, but I haven't really connected much with my siblings. I was like, I'm going to set up like a family Zoom meeting. And of course, you know, that meeting went sideways very quickly, not in a bad way. It was just Ketteringham ridiculousness. It was quite fun, but it was very chaotic. But even there, I wanted to be just genuine and just I talked about, hey, I've been lonely and I've been missing people, and I've been missing you folks. And so I think the more genuine we can be and talk about our struggles, I think it humanizes us. And I think it gives people the opportunity to say, hey, like, okay, so like, yeah, they're counselors and they're here to help us, but they're human and they have struggles. And it sounds like they're working through their stuff, and it sounds like they're staying afloat. And I'm finding that you know, some humanizing ourselves has actually been, it's been what's worked for me in the work that I've been doing with folks. But I don't know, like I'm definitely not a marketing major, that's for sure. That's never been anything that has been a strength of mine. And so I think myself and others struggle at times with how to reach out to other people. You know, again, I know a lot of people. That's one of the blessings, I guess, of being an extrovert is I know a lot of people, and I let people know, hey, you know what, if people are struggling, let them know that I'm here for them. And you know, when I went fully into private practice, that was one of the things that I noticed. I had a lot of fear about, my God, am I even going to be able to do this? Because I took away this safety net of a normal job, you know, where I had an employer, and I had fear. But what I realized shortly after leaving was that, yeah, I knew a lot of people, and I relied a lot on those folks. And there have been times where, you know, like, you know, you and I have referred people back and forth because it wasn't going to be a good fit for ourselves, right? And so in that sense, I think it works well. I think more practitioners need to be working collaboratively. I think we need to be working together as a collective, as opposed to, this is mine, right? No, this is my your area of expertise, and I'm going to keep these clients. I'm not going to tell them. No, come on. You know, like I've you know, been on the phone with some people, and they're like, yeah, this is what's going on for me. And I'm thinking, man, that is not my wheelhouse. That is not my strength. And so I'm regularly referring folks out, because I know that I'd be doing a disservice by providing a level of care that I know that you would be more adept at. or someone else, right? And so
Totally.
I'm finding that with many people, there is collaboration that's going on, and I think it's important that we work together that way, because yeah, yeah, I understand people are in fear and people want to protect their livelihood, but I also believe that we've got to look out for the needs of others, because we're working with a vulnerable portion of our population, and they need the best care possible. And so yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah,
makes any
and
sense. I
it's
started rambling
no.
there for a second.
Oh no, it's great. There's a couple things I want to say, and one of them is that collaboration piece. I mean, that's I like the ethics piece of this. Is like we have a duty to provide services that are in our wheelhouse, and if we can't do that, or we're not experts in that field, then referring out is what we ought to be doing, right?
Hmm.
And I've seen in the helping field, I've actually seen relationships between helpers fall apart because they're so
Yeah.
grabby. I'm not sure what else the word is, but it's like, this is my client base and you're a competition with me, and to each their own, but I find that it doesn't work in the grand scheme, because you're gonna kind of hoard all your clients, and it's just like
Hmm.
there's a world outside of that, and there's power, strength in numbers. And so I don't believe in the competition model of like,
Yeah.
well, we're going to do this better, and we're going to steal this wording from you, and we're going to whatever. And I believe in survival. I absolutely
Hmm.
believe it. We have to pay our bills, and things are hard, and people are in fear, so they're trying to like hang on. But what I'm learning is that it's so much more valuable to be in collaboration, because then there's so
Hmm.
many other options,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that's why. And so I don't care how many hundreds and hundreds of counselors or counseling companies are in competition with me. I don't see it that way. I'm like,
Yeah.
come and talk to me, I'll promote you. I'll
Hmm.
say,
Hmm.
we appreciate the relationship with this organization,
Fully.
and I am happy to put a gold star on this organization from my personal opinion, professional opinion, and like, go and see them.
Yeah.
I love that, because
Yeah.
to hang on so tightly, we do a disservice to the people that we serve.
Agreed.
And that's why I love the collaboration with you, because I remember when we've had conversations in the past about being in private practice, and I love that connection that we made back then, when you were thinking of doing that. And since then, I've if someone's a better fit for you, then by all means. But I think my point is that I just don't see any value in fighting against each other. Like, this is just
Totally.
not,
No.
people don't get the help they deserve when we do that. And then it becomes about money, and these people are
Yeah.
numbers. And this is why we give stuff away for free. This is why we're doing these interviews for free, why we do groups for free, why we do slide and
Hmm.
scale and donation program for free. It's
Hmm.
all, so it's like, I love the collaboration. So I'm really fired up about that, as you can see. And
Yeah.
and it's just been heartbreaking to me to watch some relationships disintegrate as a result of
I
this
agree.
like business model of, these are ours and don't take them from us, kind of thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, we don't own these people, and they're not numbers, they're human
That is
beings.
true.
So that's
And I also think that, like, right now is just it's a time of adversity, and
Mhm.
this is a time for us to grow and change, right? Like, as human beings, we're meant to adapt. We're meant to change and grow and become stronger. And when I
Mhm.
reflect back, like, I'm not gonna lie, I have had moments of fear. I've had moments where I've checked my bank account on a daily
Yep.
basis, because I'm like,
Mhm.
ugh, like, every time a mortgage payment comes out, it's like my heart skips a beat, not in a good way,
Mhm.
right? Because I know RBC isn't struggling right now. I know they're making their money from me. And so, but what I realize now is, like, I've lived through divorce. I've lived through getting clean. I've lived through losing jobs. I've lived through being a starving
Mhm.
student. Not lying, I was a starving student, right? And I've gone through a lot of hardship at times, and nothing has stopped me. Nothing, right? I have struggled
Mhm.
and I have trudged, and I've gone through some of the hardest times in my life, and I don't
Mhm.
believe this is going to be the thing that ends me. okay? If it is going to be something that ends me, it will be most likely diabetes, because I really love Pop-Tarts and Apple Jack cereal that I brought back from California. I brought back 3 boxes. I'm on my last box of Apple Jacks. Last box. I haven't touched it for weeks. I've gone through all the Pop-Tarts. They have cinnamon roll Pop-Tarts in the United States. Of course they do. But I brought back a box and they're gone. The apple one's gone, but I have 1 box of Apple Jacks left. I'm going to hold on to that one for a while. Probably open it up in a month.
Yeah.
but getting back to the point is, like, we're all going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. There might be some times where we have to, scrimp and save and all that kind of stuff. We're doing that. What I've learned is of not working out of my office and not being able to travel and do all these things is I realize how much money I spend at Tim Hortons and Starbucks. A lot. I buy a lot of snacks. Anytime I'm commuting up and down the island, I stop and I get a snack. And since then, I've noticed we're doing okay. We're doing okay. But part of the reason why we're doing okay is because I'm not spending as much money on treats. So we're going to get through this. We're going to be fine. While I'm getting through this, I'm going to continue to treat other professionals with respect. I'm going to continue to refer out when it's not an appropriate match for me. And like whenever I see competition out there, it's important. There needs to be competition. Like there are like if we look at residential treatment centers for addiction on Vancouver Island, there's a lot. There is a lot of competition on the island here, and they can get in pissing matches. Go ahead. They did for years, but it never served anybody. It didn't serve the treatment centers, and it definitely didn't serve their patients. And so what I've noticed over the years, I've noticed that some of that drama, the adversarial relationships have kind of washed away. And now what I see is that when one place isn't a good fit for one person, then they can refer to this other place. They have a different model, they have a different approach. But what happens is these people who are desperate and dying, they get the care they need, as opposed to, no, we're going to try and keep you over here and we'll take care of you, even though this place over here is going to be the better fit. This is where they're actually going to stand a better chance of getting better. And so I love that that sense of competition has turned more into teamwork. And I want us to be doing that together. I adore you, so I'm never going to be in an adversarial relationship with you. I will always be referring to you, and I believe you will always be referring to me, because we know how each other works. And you and I have a very similar style. We tend to be kind of no nonsense. We tend to call it like we see it, mixed in with a whole bunch of inappropriate jokes. Yep.
Love it.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I know there is competition. There needs to be some competition, but there also needs to be there just needs to be some teamwork. And without teamwork, we're on our own. And it's tough to work on your own. That.
And so, for sure. And in addition to that, there's this this idea of being collaborative and teamwork. We can stretch across topics, right? So when we're sitting at home and we're struggling, or we live alone and we're lonely, my question that I put out there to whoever's listening to this is like, how can you be in collaboration with others? How can you join a team of some kind? How can you step up and make some meaning out of your situation? Look at the silver lining of your situation. Because just as much as Terry and I here are talking about, it's really important to be collective in this approach. Same goes for those of you who are struggling with anything. How do we be a team? And if we don't know how to do that, are we asking those questions? And if we're not, why aren't we asking those questions? So to me, it's about like looking at the invitations of what we have, and that I say invitation because of an interview I had earlier this morning, and that the woman was a seasoned counselor, 30 years, and she was saying, like, this is an invitation to connect and improve and use the gifts in front of us. So if we're not doing that, why not? Right? Like, why are we fighting against the grain, or why are we fighting with each other? And there's lots of reasons why we'll do that. But Terry, something you said earlier, you said, we're going to be fine. I imagine that some people will say, yeah, for sure, Terry, we're going to be fine. And there's going to other people who are going to say, screw you, Terry, you don't know me. I'm not going to be fine. I'm not going to get through this. So like, how do we speak to those people who do not think they're going to be fine?
Well, I don't know. Screw them. No, no, I'm joking. Like I honestly, I don't know. I think part of it comes back to leading by example. Like when I speak to my experiences, like my experiences aren't ones that, like, I'm not making this stuff up. Like I could, if someone wants to know more about my story, come and ask me. I will tell you part of the story, and you will understand that, yeah, hard times happen. My life hasn't even been that hard. Like, it's been tough. There have been definitely some tough times. But that's just my experience. There were times in my life when I didn't think I was going to make it. And there were times when I thought, holy shit, this is horrible. How am I going to live through this? How am I going to get through a divorce? How am I going to get through, having lost a job, all those kinds of things? How am I going to get through being this broke? How am I going to get through it? And I just did. I did whatever it took. And that didn't come on the backs of anybody or anything like that, but it's just around. I'm going to keep coming back to that leading by example piece and talking about how our experience. There were times in my earlier life when I was feeling hopeless, and someone else who had been hopeless came along and said, yeah, but what about this? Take a look at it this way. Right? When we were talking about, like, even times when I've seen my own therapist has helped reframe that negative soundtrack that I have playing in the back of my head. Because as much as I can be all positive and say, yeah, we're going to get through this, my partner knows full well that once in a while, I'll be on my phone first thing in the morning, obsessively checking the bank account. And she rolls over and says, are you obsessing about the bank account? It's like, yeah, because it's Wednesday and that's what I do. And so that we're going to have everyone's going to have their moments where they're losing faith in this process. But I don't know, if people are struggling and they don't know if they're going to be able to make it, call me. I'll talk to you. Like, I'll hang out with you. Let's talk about how we're getting through it right now. And so, I don't know, I do remember that when I was, when I decided to go back to university again and being a dad and having this really nice big house, and then making a decision that I was to let go of that house and move into a basement suite. And we had a big, beautiful home. And I remember my buddy was like, dude, like, this house is killing you. Like, you're drowning here. Why do you? Because, well, I like to be able to have the guys over for dinner, and it's a nice big house, but most of the time it's just me in this big, like, 3-bedroom house. And it was a big house. And he was like, dude, that's all about your ego. What do you need? What do you actually need? And when I looked at it, I was like, well, what I need is a much smaller place, and I need to really downsize. And that's one thing where I think I've really grown over the last number of years, is I've learned to be financially responsible and not have, like, and I live comfortably. I do. I have a fairly comfortable life, but I also know how to go real cheap, real quick, right? And so I saw something about, somebody posted some picture online or something like that about, people being new poor, kind of like, the new rich people, and now it's the new poor. I don't think people know how to pinch pennies. And I think that's really tough. I don't know if a lot of people, there are a lot of people who haven't had to experience going without, because they've had a life of, in many cases, a life of luxury. But I think there are some people who are definitely struggling with the fear of the unknown and the fear of financial insecurity. I think when people are really afraid, they just need to reach out and talk about it, and eventually they'll find someone who will show them what they need to do next.
Yeah, I love that. I would say the number one thing when I ask people who come to us for counseling, and I say, have you had counseling in the past? And for those who have, and I say, what was your experience? If they've had a poor experience, the number one reason is because they felt as though the counselor could not come to a level that was relatable. So, the counselor was in a pedestal position, or like, oh, I know best, and I'm going to tell you how you can
Mm-hmm.
make your life better because I have all the answers. And this is such a dangerous way to not only practice as a counselor, but also to be in the world, is how I know best. Because isn't it true that, you know, we all cry ourselves to sleep sometimes? You know,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it true that we all have a plethora of different feelings that change
Mm-hmm.
constantly? And so I love what you're saying around, like, I'm not afraid to tell you my story. And you and I really connect on that front. And this is something I've always
Mm-hmm.
admired about you, and live in my own life, is that I'm not afraid to do that. At one point I was very afraid to do that. Like, oh, what are
Mm-hmm.
people going to think of me? And I was really stuck in my own, like, all about me thoughts, because I was so afraid of being rejected by others. And don't get me wrong, I still have that sometimes. But to say to someone, yeah, like, I've struggled with addiction, and they
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, okay, so you know what this feels like. And we can say, yeah, I know what this feels like in my own way. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it feels like to be desperate, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of what the story is. Like, I get that. And so when we can be relatable and human toward others that we're talking to, whether it's in our practice or in our lives just in general, there's an opportunity for deep-seated, heartfelt connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where there's like an invitation to open up to change, and in a safe way, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because when someone's telling me their story and I can relate to it, then I feel connected and safer with that person to say, oh yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's the way to practice for sure, but it's the way to live as far as I'm concerned. And then some people, though, they're not quite ready for that, and and it's like, oh, okay, maybe I'm a bit too much. Like, I
Yeah.
meet someone and I want to be friends with them, and I'm like, oh, this and this and this, and they're like, whoa, now.
Yeah,
And they
that's right.
don't want to hear it. They don't want to tell me anything about themselves, and I'm like, okay, so what's next?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, and oftentimes what I find when I'm trying to create friendships like that is they fizzle really quickly, because there's just nothing to connect on, because there's
Yeah.
no openness there to be able to do that. So although we are talking about being counselors and our practice, and how to serve clients in the healthiest way that's most advantageous for them, um, we're also talking about just being human and how it relates, you know,
Yeah.
to our relationships, for sure. And so the invitation that I'm taking from what you're saying, Terry, is like, how do we how do we look at being a team as human beings in one collective
Mm-hmm.
here? This is not just about those who are struggling, but those who, like, you know, want to experience greater connection and don't know how to do it. And so Terry said it, he nailed it. Like, call him,
Mm-hmm.
call us,
Mm-hmm.
call somebody. And if that
Mm-hmm.
somebody isn't able to satisfy a deep seated, you know, connection that you're looking for or hoping for, call somebody else. You know, like, just keep reaching out. So that's really what I'm
Agreed.
hearing, Terry.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you don't know who to call, then tell us, and we'll help you find that person too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know. Like, I know there are times in the work that we do, and I know that you and I were talking about this before. Um, it can be very exhausting, holding space for somebody for long periods of time in a day. And so, as much
Mm-hmm.
as, like, you know, I don't work as many hours as I did when I was, you know, when I worked in that treatment center. I would be there for 8 hours a day, and yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
was exhausting, because some of the stuff that goes on in those kinds of facilities is exhausting work. It is
Mm-hmm.
horribly exhausting at times, but holding space for somebody for an hour straight, where you're present with them in their pain and their suffering, and then
Mm-hmm.
having that end and do that again for the next person, and having that and then do that again for the next person over a prolonged period during a day, like, it's exhausting. You know, lately, and my partner says, she said to me the other day, she says, she's like, I just didn't want to bother you. You looked exhausted. Like, I was passed out on the couch, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And then it was like,
Yeah.
oh, and then I'd wake up, and then I'd go to the bedroom, and then I would just pass out in the bed. And so
Mm-hmm.
there are some days where I'm quite exhausted. And, you know, if you looked at my day on paper, you would say, wow, look at all the time you have for activities and fun stuff. But I do lack the motivation many days. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, my joke about I'll mow the lawn tomorrow. It's got nothing to do with whether or not the weather's like, the weather was fine this morning when I got up. I could have mowed the lawn this morning, but there was another part of me that was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm going to make some sausage and eggs. I'm going to eat too many sausage and eggs, and I'm going to have a good time. And maybe I'll mow the lawn tomorrow. That's the plan. Probably going to rain. And then on Sunday, I'll have to mow it even more, and then it'll rain. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not like, I used to run marathons, and I used to train all the time, and I probably couldn't even run 6K without wanting to die at this point. Right? I'm running my mouth all the time.
Me too.
Yeah.
In fact, I probably could never run 6K without wanting to die.
Yeah, and so I know that it's tough for everybody. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy, and so, you know, my partner and I, we've talked a lot about just being kind with each other and being forgiving. Like, you know, like, yeah, we made dinner last night. Well, I made dinner last night, and then she was like, I'll deal with the dishes, but there was like a pan that had some like really hard, crusty chicken skins left over on the pan, and we had to leave that to soak. But by the end of the night, she's like, oh, you know what? Like, I'll deal with this in the morning. But I was up before her, and, you know, I don't like, me personally, I don't like leaving dishes at the end of the night. I don't. By the end of the night last night, I was like, screw it, I don't want to do it either. This morning I got up and I was like, you know what? She's having a tough time too, so I'm just going to do them. It's not a big deal. Whereas at a time when I don't think we maybe had this kind of a focus, I'd probably be annoyed with something like that. Because it's like, for crying out loud, I don't want to wake up first and have to do the dishes. Come on. So I think both of us are being quite generous with each other lately, and just being really accepting of where each of us is at. And so, you know, sometimes all she has time to do, or the energy to do, is to focus on, you know, doing some artwork. And I might have this huge agenda and she doesn't. And there are days when she has this huge agenda and I don't. And yeah. There was a part of me that was like, we are going to finish the renos in the house, and we're going to get all the trim done in the basement, and we're going to nothing. I have changed some lights. I've changed some lights, and they look magnificent. I could be an electrician. By the way, if anybody's looking for a funny electrician, I'm very expensive, and I will not do things to code. So your house will likely burn down, voiding your insurance. And there's some more adversity you'll have to get through.
Yeah. Oh man, you're always a hoot, Terry. I really enjoyed this, and I've enjoyed getting closer with you over time, right? And just connecting on that human level. And I am looking forward to that, you know, the day that we can come over and have a dinner together and you know, share in the actual like connectedness of being in the same room. But I love so much that we've been able to do this, because when do we do this? Never.
Not
right?
Together. I do this every day with other people, but not like this.
Yeah. So the connection for me personally is really wonderful, and I'm grateful for it. So I'm getting the sense this could be a natural place to close the conversation today. Now, because some people, these conversations are long, and of course I post one every single day, so a lot of people aren't watching all of them. In fact, even my sister was like, I don't watch all of them. I like half listen, and I'm like doing other things. And, you know, I imagine there's a lot of people out there who are doing that also. So to close, I'm just wondering, in summary, if there are people who've kind of skipped over the whole conversation and are just looking for some tips, just based on the conversation that we've had, any guidance or invitations to people out there based on this conversation.
Sure. Go back to the beginning and watch this whole video. This has been brilliant. I've seen some of these. This is by far the best of all of them. Sound bites galore. Okay. And no, in all honesty, I think what I think people need to do is they need to reach out. They need to be, you know, never mind the barriers that are in place. Like, the amount of people who have called me and said, hey, there are just too many barriers in place. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. It's like, actually, if we get creative, you probably can get your needs met. We can. There are a number of resources that we can help you with. you just need to reach out. And so if you're thinking, yeah, I can't, well, okay, but do a little bit of research before you actually say you can't. Because what I'm finding is even those people who say, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, we realize fairly quickly, oh, actually, there's a couple things you can do. And sometimes it's those little things that those people are doing that leads to the next thing that they can do, which leads to the next and the next and the next. And next thing you know, they're not having the same struggle they were having. So, yeah, call us, call anybody, reach out for help.
Take one little step.
Yes.
One thing, do one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was another video that an interview that I had with a woman named Petra a few days ago. That was her challenge at the end, was do one thing differently.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes we can just blanket our lives and say, nope, I can't do it. It's too much. It's a big mountain to climb. And it's like, okay, let's look at just the one step. Yeah. Right. And that's what I hear Terry saying too. So, Terry, this has been delightful and hilarious, and just really glad to have this time with you for sure. And thank you so much again for being here. And then I'm sure that we'll text later or whatever. And when we can, we'll have dinner.
It'll most likely be Pop-Tarts and Apple Jacks.
They might be gone by then, but I can bring my Lucky Charms over, because that's what's in my cupboard right now.
I have a Death Star waffle maker. We can make Death Star waffles.
Oh, I will look forward to that then.
Yay.
So good luck with everything. I'm glad you're enjoying your life and taking things in stride and seeing the silver lining of everything. But super, super great to connect with you.
You too.
All right. Take care, Terry.
Bye-bye.
Bye.